Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derrick, and I'm joined today by Ted of BrainScratchComms and Johnny of SomeCallMeJohnny to talk about Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations, which I recently completed. So, like we did when I completed Justice for All, I thought I'd give my thoughts with these two. So, let's just get right to it. Well, guys, it's been about 4 months, believe it or not, since we last did our discussion on Justice for All, and had a really good time with that, and you guys were all excited for me to get to Trials and Tribulations, and I started right away, and then I stopped for two solid months once E3 got around, and I did not get the chance to get back to it until now.
Either you had that much shit to do between then and now, or you have a greater degree of self-control than I think Ted or I combined, because once I finished Justice for All, I immediately went to Trials and Tribulation and didn't stop until I finished that game. And 4 months, yeah, you know what? It really doesn't feel like it was 4 months since we did the Justice for All discussion, but I'm glad we were able to follow up on it, because this is, to me, my second favorite in the series, next to the original, and I think every case hits its mark at some point, though there are setups for a certain case that I just slap my forehead with. Not as hard as Apollo Justice, but it's almost up there.
And really? Where?
We can get to it when we get to it, but just as where I stand now, this is my second favorite game in the series.
Okay.
I always go back and forth on what Ace Attorney game is my favorite. Usually, I just kind of cop out and say 1, 2, 3 as my favorite, because it's one complete story, honestly. But if I had to pick, if I'm forced to pick one, I usually say it's Trials and Tribulations, just because it's such a solid conclusion to everything that's built up over the first two games. Although personally, my favorite individual case is still the final case from Justice for All, but that's kind of getting into more specific sort of things. Unfortunately, since I was playing these games as an OG fan back in 2007, I wasn't able to immediately follow up Justice for All. I had to wait the long, I think like 10 months or so, in between Justice for All and Trials and Tribulations original DS releases. Oh, not original. The games were originally released on the GBA in Japan, but I don't know Japanese, so whatever. Anyway, so yeah, Trials and Tribulations is a fantastic game. Also, I think since we're talking about an Ace Attorney game, I think we should throw out the spoiler warning. Right I
was going to throw out the spoiler warning, because we are going to get into spoilers, but I did want to give before those who are still waiting for my basic opinions of the game. I agree with these two. This is a extremely solid conclusion to the original trilogy of Ace Attorney. It leads up to a lot, but the thing is, I think I still have to give the edge to the original game, if only for one reason. You cannot jump into this game blind. I think you can enjoy some elements, but it definitely works more as a conclusion than its own entity.
Yeah.
So unless you're playing the other, you really need to play the first two first. And it's only because of that I would recommend, that I think I prefer Ace Attorney 1 over 3. And I think overall, though, taking in as a whole, looking over the entire series, I do think Trials and Tribulations is my favorite in the series. So that's sort of where I stand right there. But here's your solid spoiler warning, where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of this game.
Yeah, you're right about that, because a lot of the times, since I'm pretty outspoken about being an Ace Attorney fan, a lot of people occasionally will ask me, "Yo, Ted, what's a good entry to start with Ace Attorney? Such and such game's coming out soon. Should I try that one?" And I always have to say no. Start at Ace Attorney 1, play through chronologically from that point, because it doesn't make sense. If you start with Dual Destinies, you're not going to know what the hell's going on. So it's mandatory to play in order. And I mean, granted, you could say the same thing about like Lord of the Rings. You're not going to start watching Lord of the Rings at Two Towers, but
the series is wrapped up tight in its own continuity that you have to start from the first game to understand pretty much every other game after that. There's just no writing around that.
It just matters more. I mean, right from the outset with Case 1, we're playing as Mia. And that was such a shock to me. I did not expect that at all, because even though I owned the box, I didn't look at the back of the box. I just popped the game in. And I looked at the back of the box later and immediately saw that, oh, hey, I'm playing as Mia in this game. Didn't know that. I just went into it completely blind and, like, wow. Did not expect that at all, to be playing a completely different character than Phoenix.
Yeah, two thoughts. One, this is either a prequel or Phoenix is practicing in necromancy.
Why would he need to bring her back from the dead when he can just ask Maya to call Mia anytime he wants?
Yeah,
That is
too
true.
Convenient. It's a challenge. It's really funny. Just to talk about aesthetics here for a second. One thing immediately that I noticed comparing Trials and Tribulations to Justice for All and the original was the soundtrack. It sounded, even for the, because the benefit of the DS versions over the original Game Boy Advance incarnations is that they up the quality of the music. And I will
better instruments.
Better instruments. That's not really the case with Trials and Tribulation, and I looked up why. Apparently, the different composers for Trials and Tribulation. Original soundtrack for the original and Justice for All was Masakazu Sugimori, and Justice for All was Akemi Kimura. But Trials and Tribulation was Noriyuki Iwadare, and I'm not sure if there was any correlation between the original composers, but this composer went for a more tiny sound, because the soundtrack still sounds like a Game Boy Advance soundtrack. Not to say that the composition of the themes are good, are bad, because I got a lot of favorite themes in this game too. But I compared to Justice for All and the original, I would say it's the weakest of the three. In terms of soundtrack? Yeah, soundtrack-wise.
Honestly, I think Justice for All probably has the weakest soundtrack overall. Iwadare, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, would later do a lot of, would basically become the Ace Attorney music guy after Trials and Tribulations. He did that. He did both Investigations games. He's done Dual Destinies, and he's going to be doing Spirit of Justice. So he's basically the face of the music. And the instruments do kind of have a more tinny sound to them. Is it supposed to be tinny or tiny? I don't remember.
I'd say tiny.
It's tin. I think it's tinny, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
8-bit.
I would say that I still think that out of the first three games, Ace Attorney 1 has the best music. But
Yeah.
Ace Attorney, I think the best Ace Attorney soundtrack overall might actually be Investigations 1, which is so good. But
I would say Apollo Justice, but I don't want to trigger Ted too early in this discussion.
I know music is mostly subjective, but I just massively disagree with that opinion.
I will say it is a noticeable difference going from, because I've already started Apollo Justice since completing this game, and it is funny going from this game to that game and seeing the bump up in sprite quality, seeing the different music that's being applied to it. And I don't have a solid opinion on any of it yet, other than it is, wow, these characters are all of a sudden sharper now. That's kind of nice, you know?
Yeah, but don't you just love how the judge is the same exact sprite from the GBA games? It flashes horribly.
Well, he's old.
Yeah. It's fuzzy.
Well, there'll be plenty of time for making fun of Apollo later. Yeah, there is one specific thing I want to talk about in regards to the music, but that's like way back when we're talking about the fifth case, so I'll save that for later. But favorite themes, because obviously, I think that if there's one thing that Trials and Tribulations does better than most of the other games is giving great villain themes. Like the Mask theme is awesome.
Yeah.
Furio Tigre's theme is amazing. Derrick, have you looked up the orchestral or jazz arrangements of any of the Ace Attorney games?
No, I've never done that.
Oh, do that, please.
Be careful, because if you're looking up Ace Attorney music, you can easily spoil stuff through titles. But
okay.
Once you're caught up, I really recommend looking up the Ace Attorney orchestral and Ace Attorney jazz collections, because they are phenomenal.
I'll have to do that, because I agree with you guys. The music in these games are great, and I I don't have the ear for audio that you guys have. I really believe that. I just generally like it, and
you are the better man.
I don't know about that, because I hear you guys describe this music. I'm like, oh, I wish I could really recall that kind of stuff, because I know the general themes and stuff that stick out. But the song that does stick out the most to me is, of course, the pumped up, like, not investigation, but trial sequence where everything's like da 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 da.
The pursuit theme.
The pursuit theme. Yeah. Thank you. I forgot the official one, and then the smoothness of Godot's theme.
Godot's theme's probably the most iconic theme, specifically from Trials and Tribulations. Mm-hmm. So, the jazz version in particular of Godot's theme is sex to your ears. It is fantastic.
Good to know.
Coffee to my lips.
And coffee to my lips. There you go. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. The soundtrack is phenomenal. I greatly listened to it, but I couldn't pull out exact tracks unless you like, oh, what about this theme? Yeah, that's a great theme. Oh, this one. Yeah, that's a great theme.
And I think we're maybe spending too long on this like soundtrack topic. You got to understand that, especially if you're just listening to this now and if you're in the spoiler territory, shame on you. The soundtracks for these games are so integral to the experience because, besides that, you're reading a lot of text. And you're looking at a lot of static.
This is a visual novel.
Too.
Yeah, it's a visual novel. You're reading a lot of text. You're going to need some catchy tunes to supplement what's happening on the screen. And I think it's really important that we discuss and praise and compliment it when it works, because it does.
Mm-hmm. It's so important to the emotion too, because obviously you're reading. It's a story, obviously. So the music is there to highlight certain things, and particular songs just capture certain characters so well. Like, for instance, Dahlia, her theme, which has a name, but I don't remember it. Like, when you first see her and you know something's up with her, but you don't really get the feeling that she's like pure Satan yet. You figure that out. But even when she's passing off as this like gentle girl, the theme fits just on an aesthetic level. But when you get to the points where she becomes really twisted, her theme is so eerie to listen to, especially when she's basically taunting you, and like hiding behind her umbrella and things like that. So
can we agree? Most disgusting villain in this series?
Oh, I actually disagree with that.
Really? I can't stand Dahlia.
She is the second most to me. But here's the thing. She's the most obvious one. She's the one that you would immediately think of as the worst villain in this trilogy. But to me, when you think about what they've done, what they've orchestrated, Morgan, by far in this game.
That's... Morgan? Okay, well, in terms of favorite, by favorite, I mean like most despicable villain, I go back between Dahlia and Matt on Guard a lot, because Matt on Guard from Justice for All is a gigantic douchebag. In a good way. I love him as a villain, but he's a douchebag. Morgan, honestly, I think that she's an underutilized aspect of Trials and Tribulations, and it's one of my only complaints about the game story-wise, is that it felt like they didn't wrap her up. Well, you never get a proper confrontation with Morgan Fay. And it feels like they left something hanging there. Like, there's still tension between, like, her and what's stopping her from starting another plan to kill Maya next week, Because if she can do it, if she could do it before, she could figure out a way to do it again.
I think because of what happens at the end of the game, I think we don't have to ever worry about that ever again, because there's a reason why Dahlia and Morgan are sort of in cahoots. In massive quotes there.
Yeah, sort of.
in the game. So once that wraps up, I don't think we ever have to worry about that. I think that's what they were counting on. Not saying it was well executed, because I do agree.
No, it would have been nice to have one final denouement to that whole encounter, because the things Morgan does is pure evil, like even more so than Dahlia, in my opinion. Extremely petty. Extremely petty.
I don't think she should have been the final villain, because I do think that Dahlia makes a better final villain than Morgan, because there's just more going on with her, like emotionally and psychologically. But at the same time, I think Morgan is still a great villain and deserved a better ending, because like they left her hanging obviously in Justice for All, and okay, there's going to be more with her later on, And while there technically is, it's not fully resolved. So
yeah, it's very much just background and hearsay and stuff like that. It's never anything direct. And but yeah, let's focus on Dahlia, since she is the highlight of case 1. And,
Case one is really good. I think case 1 I think is one of the best case 1s in the series. Partially just because it doesn't bother with the hand holding at all. Like, obviously, if you're playing game 3, you know how the mechanics work of Ace Attorney. You know how to play. And obviously they do have this is what this button does, just on the slight chance that somebody picked this up as their first one. But it doesn't treat the character as stupid like some other games would. Like, I think I'm trying to remember the beginning of Dual Destinies, but Athena's so nervous at the beginning of that game that she can't make a solid point without stumbling over her own feet, and you get a much stronger appearance of Mia at the beginning of the game than Phoenix was at the beginning of the original, and you don't have to worry with something kind of contrived like the amnesia thing from Justice for All either. It's the game has enough respect for you that it knows you don't need a long in-depth tutorial.
Yeah. Though, to be fair to Dual Destinies, Athena is a completely new character that has yet to be introduced into the series, while Mia is someone we've already familiar with in Ace Attorney 1.
I get that.
2.
And it also helps that it's her second case, so...
Yes.
Well, but that's not... I get that, but a small spoiler for Ace Attorney 5... the first time you control Athena is not her first case, so it doesn't really make sense that she should be that nervous there, but that's a different discussion altogether.
We'll get there eventually.
3 years from now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that Mia, you really do, I think, from the flashback cases, get the sense that Mia, you understand what made her so good at being a lawyer, even right out the bat. Because if you compare Mia's performance in her trial to Phoenix, and I'd say any of the trials from the first game, it's night and day how much better she is at this than Phoenix is. It's astounding, honestly.
Yeah, she's just a natural, and to see her sort of take these steps and really figure it out and going where she is, basically overcoming her own trauma from the previous case with this one, which you don't really know much about. It is interesting to go into this when you're it's a very interesting point to start out. It's key, but it's also interesting, going back to when you get to case 4, comparing the two. And I mean, to me, it was just when I was first playing, it's oh wow, I'm playing Mia. Oh wait, her first this is how she met Phoenix. She was defending him because he was a lovesick puppy who didn't know any better.
Yeah. What did you...
Emphasis on the sick.
Yeah. That is true.
What did you think of College Feeny? Let's call him. What do you think of Feeny there, Derrick?
That pink sweater.
Oh, that pink sweater
needed to go. I'm serious. I get the point of the damn sweater. He's so infatuated with Dahlia, but it's this thing is garish to look at. I want it off.
He was such a dork, and he was definitely one of those couples. Oh god, just all that lovey-dovey and nickname stuff. It's
everybody knows that couple, though. You have to admit.
Yeah. And such violent sneezing too.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. They had the mask coming off, and that was good stuff. But it was also effective, showing just how much control Dahlia had over him. That she could say these things and he wouldn't believe it, and he just could not believe it. And you're want to shake him. It's you're an idiot. She is obviously evil.
It's astounding how much control Dahlia has over people. I think we're probably gonna go case by case talking about this, but to jump ahead to case 4 for a minute, she has everybody wrapped around her finger in that case as well, and in here. One of the first things you see in case 1 is her being "Oh, Mr. Judge, you're not gonna let that mean defense attorney be all nasty to me on her," and then he's just "Of course I won't." And then you have Winston Payne too, who's I love Winston Payne in Ace Attorney 3 just because of his stupid pompadour and how he like his little like hand flippy thing and it just like goes boing. It's fantastic. I will say, even though the sprites get much better in Apollo and especially Investigations, I love the sprite animation in Ace Attorney 3. It is a huge jump up from 1 and 2, especially 1, because a lot of the 1 sprites are a little bit less detailed than what we would see later on. But it's it was amazing, I think, how they even gave minor characters like the Judge and Winston Payne some amount of character development in this. So it was really cool.
Yeah, definitely was. And it's experiencing Dahlia, figuring out her case and going through that. It was definitely interesting to see, like why are they, I was very curious, like, are they just showing me this because this is how Phoenix and Mia met, and also kind of explains why Phoenix doesn't exactly get that close to Maya. because
like
because after that point, for at least until Case 5, it really felt like, especially throughout the series, it felt like Phoenix was sort of, I don't know, kind of like Miles, where he just was not interested in any type of love story at all. It was always more about respect and friendship.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily he's not interested in romance or sex, because you definitely get the sense, especially from a couple of characters, where he definitely has a sex drive. He's just very awkward about it. Like, there's a couple of lines in the first game with April May where he's just like he's intimidated by her, basically. With that said, I never really thought about Phoenix not getting too close to Maya because he was burned on a previous relationship. That wasn't something I've ever considered before. I've never taken Maya and Phoenix's relationship to be super, romantic. I always thought them to be just very close friends.
Platonic, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much platonic, and I think that was always the case. And the only romance angle that came out of it is Pearls.
Pearls. Aw. Aw. Poor Pearl does not catch a break in this game.
No, she does not. She definitely does not, but we'll move on. Is there anything else I guess we should mention about Case 1 before we move on to Case 2?
Just that I like how they set up Maya, not Maya. I like how they set up Mia in that game, and you could really see how she grew to become like this legendary defense attorney. I think it did a lot without needing to like elaborate on it too much, which I think
it also successfully planted a lot of seeds for the rest of the game that you would not expect to come back.
Which I love when games do that.
Oh yeah, agreed.
It's such, especially when done effectively, because it just takes you for a loop when you least suspect it, and it makes replaying the game especially all more enjoyable, because now you're looking for those hints, and then you kind of slap yourself for the forehead. It's like, no, why didn't I see that before? Of course, when she turns around, the butterflies erupt in flames. She's evil.
Yeah, there's just one of those things you wouldn't notice on a first playthrough. When you get Phoenix off, he has a line where it says, "Hey, you don't think that was actually my dolly up there? Like, she could have had an evil twin or something to that effect." Like. Damn, like I didn't just like it's played off as like a joke at that point, or just like he's being delusional. But
especially since he's like, that couldn't have been my dolly. He's still so convinced, and you're like, because all you've seen so far is that Dahlia, so you have like you're with me. It's like, dude, there's no way.
So it's kind of weird. It's very interesting for me to see fresh eyes on these games, because I've had these kind of as my kind of background for almost 10 years now. So sometimes when I introduce these games to people, they point out things to me that I can't notice just because I've been I can't see the full picture because I've looked at it too much, if that makes sense.
You're not taking a few steps back to look at the entire thing. You're focused on a detail.
Yeah, basically. That was the metaphor I was trying to go with, but poof. It left.
I think it was written by the famous Wayne Gretzky.
But yeah, well, speaking of poof, we have Case 2 and Mask to Mask. And
Oh,
probably my favorite of the pun names, Luke at Me.
look at me. You do not know how long it took me to get that one. It was...
Oh, I got that one right away.
Well,
I just got it.
Are you serious, Johnny?
I know. I should know better because all the names are puns in this damn series. But I just
sometimes you do have to say them out loud, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's-
I mean,
yeah,
when I see a new name, I do take a few moments to try to figure out the pun in the name. And I'm always kind of shocked. It's like, am I missing something? Because some of them do not have, like, really obvious pun names, or their whole name, or just something that's not quite that punny. But
They stop being as subtle after Trials and Tribulations. Ace Attorney Investigations literally has a murder victim called Dead Man.
yeah. That's right.
They stop trying. Don't worry, it'll get easier. They stop trying.
oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the first case of Spirit of Justice, the boy you're defending.
I'll be your guide.
Yes, I'll be your guide. I was like, yes, that's so good.
Yeah. But yeah. The one thing about Trials and Tribulations is that most Ace Attorney games generally follow a particular story pattern where they've got first case is the introduction case, second case is your kind of fleshing out the world case, third case is your filler case, fourth case is your conclusion case. This game is kind of interesting in that cases 2 and 3 kind of do both the filler and the world expanding thing at the same time, because in terms of the overall plot, aside from introducing Godot, you really don't take too much from either Case 2 or Case 3 in Trials and Tribulations, but at the same time, they're such entertaining cases on their own merits that I don't really care that much.
Stolen Turnabout's only purpose in world building is introducing Godot, I would say, and not even just because he's the prosecutor for this game, but because he has some sort of tie to Phoenix that we're not aware of at this point.
Yeah.
So it keeps you interested, and it just so happens that the rest of the case is pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to see, like, basically these two wanting to get convicted with the burglary and going all that. And I love the conclusion of this case so much. Like, I was laughing my ass off when you finally get to the end and you find out that no, it really was I forget his actual name, but Mask to Mask, really did
Ron
Delight.
Ron Delight, that's right. And he's like, he really did commit the burglary, but we just proved he's innocent, so double jeopardy, so he gets off scot-free.
Well, that's the prosecution's fault for charging him with all counts of grand larceny when they only had proof for one. So
I still found that hilarious. Is that they were just
the first case I ever had, I think, in the series up until that point that made me sweat bullets when I was getting to the end, because I think to cap it off, you had to press the right statement, otherwise it's the instant game over.
Yeah,
when you were convicting Luke.
Oh yeah, that was. You want to know something funny about the first time I played that case? I hadn't saved since the original. I hadn't saved since like the beginning of that trial day.
Oh no!
So I got it wrong, and I had to fast forward through the entire trial all over again.
That sucks.
It was not fun.
I do take moments to save throughout. Just
oh no! After that, I got into my habit of save scumming at every single
every
examination.
press.
You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Case 2. Part of why I like Case 2 so much is that Godot is a much more. Well, we'll talk more about Godot specifically later on, but he's a much more, I think, effective prosecutor than, especially Franziska. I think. I mean, Franziska is a good character, but not, I think, a great one. So I think the way that Godot tricks you a lot more than either.
He's very unorthodox.
Yeah, either. Although Godot's interesting in that he's the only prosecutor with a that's confirmed that has like a perfect loss record. I think because he loses every trial he's in. So it's just.
Well, he is a defense attorney, so.
Yeah. I mean, still, like he's made out to be super threatening. It's like, wait, this guy loses every case. So.
And he throws coffee at you.
Yeah, he does.
Like, you know,
I don't know if that's better or worse than the whip.
It's
worse. You get burnt. That's gotta be second-degree burns.
First off, yeah, if it's not the scalding hot coffee that's hitting you in the face, the mug itself is made out of porcelain glass, most likely. It's smacking you in the face.
Not to mention that it's confirmed that he's brewing individual cups of coffee as he's doing the trial, so they're all piping hot too. Although I feel really bad for the intern that's off to the side who's constantly sliding him new mugs. But
I feel like the mug has to be somewhat solid to, one, survive the hit against Phoenix, and also the fact that he slams it down so often, like his own gavel.
It's made out of cement.
Yeah, there you go.
And he drinks tar.
It is a bitter blackness. So there you go.
And he puts nothing in it. That's disgusting.
Yeah. As a fellow coffee drinker, Johnny, what do you think of Godot's drinking habits?
I love the gimmick. Because even I look at this guy. He says he drinks 17 cups a day?
Yeah, 17 cups a trial.
Yeah. 17 cups a trial. I was like,
yeah, he's dude's I don't know if coffee can do anything to your liver, but the real reason why he has to wear the mask isn't because of the poison. It's because all the caffeine literally shrunk his eyes into his sockets.
I think it wears the visor for.
It's part of why I like the gimmick though is that it's a part of his personality and it's funny, but it doesn't feel overplayed like some of the other gimmicks in the series do. For example, I'm not a huge fan of Clavier Gavin because every line he speaks is rock on, I'm speaking fake German at you, widdly widdly woo. It feels overplayed and it doesn't feel like it has a point. Whereas the coffee it's funny, but it serves a symbolic function later in the game, and it's also not as obtrusive because he's just kind of holding it for most of the trial, not doing anything with it. So it's not like it's getting in the way of anything as well.
Plus, I love his nervous downing of the coffee. It's oh god, this is going wrong. Drink, 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 chug, chug, chug. It's just he's very endearing in that way. He's also definitely a dick, but
oh no, he's a massive prick.
He's a massive prick and a sexist scumbag.
Oh, true.
Oh my gosh. His interaction with Franziska shocked the hell out of me.
He basically said, "Shush, honey, the men are talking." At one point.
By using, and the only way they could soften the blow was to use a quote from The Rock.
Yeah, that's right. Know your role and shut your mouth.
Yes, exactly. And oh my god, in this context, this is horrible.
It is he's a great character because he is such an asshole.
Yeah,
you feel bad for him. You feel bad for him, but not that bad for him, I think, is part of it. And you can see elements of that in Case 4 with his interactions with Maya, where he's there's an air of him being playful, but there's also kind of that edge to how much is he just teasing her, or how much does he actually think he's that much better than her as well.
Yeah.
Calls her kitten.
Just calling her kitten and all that.
It's not just because she's a rookie defense attorney, but I think he means that. It's you're a woman. You are of lesser equality than I am as a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, and like I said, it was shocking to see him interact with Franziska in that way, and especially to see her kind of toe to him, and the only thing she could do was whip Phoenix in response.
It's moments like that where I really wish that Franziska got more development, because I think that's one of the only times in the series where somebody stands up to her and she doesn't know how to react to that.
Yeah,
there needed to be more
Edgeworth.
Yeah, you get a little bit more development there in the investigations games, but not much. I find it interesting that the first time somebody stands up to Franziska, she immediately backs down. There's a lot of room to do character stuff there, but unfortunately, since there's a lot going on in the final case, some things had to give, and Franziska was one of them. So, unfortunately.
What'd you guys think of the mystery itself of Case 2? Did you figure it out pretty easily, or did it just sort of keep you going along until it came to its conclusion and just sort of enjoyed it? How'd you like Desiree?
She's okay. I don't really have much to say about her.
Is it just me, or she didn't really feel like a gold digger to me, like somebody that needed all that expensive taste. She just seemed like somebody who really liked her motorcycle, and that didn't, like other than the stuff around her house, I didn't really get a sense that she needed money that much. I think that's one thing
she's an adrenaline junkie. Mm-hmm. I think that's what they're meant to go for. I don't know so much as much a gold digger. It was like her style of life is kind of expensive.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way to go about it.
You didn't ever get the idea that she didn't love Ron,
Oh no,
I think,
no.
which was important, I think, as well, because otherwise she comes across as the villain of the case and not Luke.
Yeah, she definitely cared for him. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Actually, thought it could have been her for a while, just her trying to protect Ron.
Yeah, it's like I was kind of expecting Luke to be the villain of the. I was expecting Luke to be the villain of the first half, but like I was kind of unsure on whether or not he did the second half of the case too, where he murdered what's his name, Kane, I think. When you're talking to Larry in the security office, did you notice that Old Bag's costume was hanging on the wall?
Oh yeah, totally noticed that.
I love those little, and I'm wondering, Derrick, how much do you examine the backgrounds in Ace Attorney?
Every time I go to a new background, I check every single bit. Yeah.
Okay, so you saw like the list of rules that Old Bag had there, which it's hilarious. I think that backgrounds, all that background stuff.
I'm very thorough when it comes to exploration. Typically,
yeah, you have to be in this kind of game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, I would say only in the rooms where it's clearly like a crime happened. You can play through the entire series and not pick up on certain running gags like Charlie the plant in the office or the stepladder debate. If you don't examine specific things, you can miss those stuff entirely. Or like gems like Edgeworth, Gumshoe telling Edgeworth that when he grew up he wanted to be a wizard. Like,
yeah,
you can miss so many great lines if you just go through the game doing the bare minimum of investigating. So I was just curious how much you poked around when it came to that kind of stuff.
Yep, I do quite a bit of poking around when it comes to that. But yeah, I'm with you. This is a very solid case. Obviously not tie into the rest of the game. The rest of the game story is tightly, other than the introduction of Godot, but I still think very strong second case to lead you back into Phoenix and reintroducing the other characters, since you were not given that in the first case. So this was sort of your proper reintroduction to Phoenix and the rest.
Yeah, it works great too. I do think cases 2 and 3 in Trials and Tribulations are probably the best filler cases in the series, I would say. In that thematically they grow characters that don't get a chance to be grown during the more story-heavy bits, like Gumshoe in Case 3, for instance. He doesn't get a lot of character development in the rest of the game, but he gets a pretty decent amount in that one case, so he doesn't feel like he's wasted.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
And then, of course, we get LT Gray.
Man.
The setup for this case irks the hell out of me.
What, the cardboard badge?
Really, I mean, I get that the judge is kind of not there, and they really play that up as the series continues, but just because they have similar hairstyle, he was able to pass off.
He gets a suit.
And a cardboard badge.
Nobody looks at that thing. That's why Phoenix has to shove it in everyone's face. Like, hey guys, look, I got a badge.
That could have been a bomb, Ted. And, I don't know. Like, I understand that the game has its silly moments, but I thought that was too silly to suspend my disbelief that far that he got away with that. Like, is everyone in this courtroom that incompetent to realize, hey, that's not Phoenix, right?
You do wonder. You do have to question the amount of intelligent people in the world of Phoenix, right?
Well, to be fair, it wasn't Godot that was prosecuted in that one. It was Winston Payne. So,
No, they made definite sure that it was Winston Payne going through all that. And
how convenient.
Yeah. Well, I think we could definitely infer the fact that, Godot took one look at El Tigre and realized, oh, that's not Phoenix.
But he also doesn't give a shit enough to tell everybody else. He
Exactly.
probably would just be sipping with his coffee in the gallery, being like, "Look at all these morons."
Pretty much.
It's yeah. I do agree, it is kind of silly, but I feel like it does set the tone for the rest of the case, though. Because this is also the case with the talking blue computer lady and the old man who's throwing birdseed at everybody.
The punching bag of a nose.
Yeah, with the weird... That nose just disturbed the heck out of me. It was just so bulbous, and then you looked at it from this, like, different angles. I'm like, where's the nostrils at? What is wrong with this man's face?
Also, Jean Armstrong.
Oh, goodness. I'm actually surprised he got through this game mostly unscathed as far as, like, his animations and the things he was doing and the things he was talking about.
Yeah, he's... Like, I don't know if he's supposed to be in drag, necessarily.
I don't think he's drag. He's just extremely effeminate, even in Japanese ones.
That's all I got from him,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, the rose in the mouth and, doing his little wiggle and, like, wow.
It's like, I really don't want to continue pressing this, man.
Yeah, exactly. Hold it.
Yeah, exactly. I object, good sir.
With that said, Armstrong is actually, I think, one of the more fleshed out characters from that case, because, like, he's very, like, he's not malicious, but he's very clearly, complacent, I guess? Like, he's forced to go along with a pretty nasty plot, all things considered, just because he's racked up so much debt, with, Tigre. And, Viola, her story's really sad, I think, as well.
It was sort of kind of carried the theme where she, kind of fell for El Tigre, or at least really respected him, and then it just was not rescinded in any way, so it kind of mirrored Phoenix and Dahlia.
Yeah, it just switched the roles.
Yeah, basically. Like, he's taking advantage of her at the same time being scared to death of her, because if he does the slightest thing to make her upset, he's basically toast.
Yeah, she's tied to the mob.
I love her last name, by the way, Cadaverini. That's beautiful.
So my favorite character of the Recipe for Turnabout, if only because I just love the foreboding air. It's like something's off. I mean, I see the bandage in the head, and I'm thinking Furio. It's probably a wife beater or some sort of thing like that. He's a scumbag and we gotta lock him up. But no, you find out the reason why she has the headband. But she's just so off, and it's like she poisoned my cookie. Like she offers snacks to Phoenix and Maya. And I just like that they draw that conclusion, because they are aware of like how. The negative vibe they're getting from the creepy vibe. It's like, she poisoned my cookie. I know she did. She poisoned my cookie.
She's out to get us.
Yeah, she's out to get us. And
you haven't made your payment yet. I haven't even loaned anything from you. Who says you needed to loan?
Take the cookie.
Well, cookie.
Okay. And then just that little bit of humor with I forget his name, but the old man, and how Maya had to get dressed up in order to appease to him or try to get him to talk, and then Maya just wasn't good enough, so they had to channel Mia. It was just like, oh, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, that I think was clever, I think. Pretty funny too. I'm surprised too, because sex isn't usually a huge thing in Ace Attorney. Like, you've got characters that are, like, I don't know, attracted to people who like cartoons. I won't judge too much. But like, romance specifically was pretty neatly left out of, especially the first game. You kind of got edges of that in the end of Ace Attorney 2, but it's not really a major thing. It's just kind of the only characters that seem to have any kind of sexual desires are the villains, I'd say, in Ace Attorney for the most part. So to see more of that, especially with the added emphasis on relationships in general in Ace Attorney 3, is interesting.
Yeah, in fact, I think every case involves a relationship of some sort.
Yeah, basically.
Feeny and Dahlia in the first one. Rhonda Light and what was her name again?
Desiree, I think.
Desiree in case 2. Maggie Bird and
I thought
Gumshoe.
I called her Maggie Bride for years. Don't.
Yeah, okay, you get the R on the Y switched up. Maggie and
Yeah.
Gumshoe in Case 3. Do we want to count Case 4? Case 4 is borderline.
Case 4.
It's kind of like that because you have Dahlia and Tom and
Terry.
then Terry follows, and then also Diego and Mia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Case 4 is just so short that it's more subtext than outright text, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I love the stuff they do with Gumshoe in Case 3 before we move on to Case 4. In that, I'd say this is Trials and Tribulations, I'd say, is just before the point where Gumshoe is really kind of flanderized to the point of being a completely useless detective. Because he's very competent. He's still very competent at his job at this point. Like, it's not that he doesn't make mistakes, but like you get to Case 3 and he's even when he's trying to mess up so that Phoenix can take advantage of that, he gets all the facts down. Like, this is what happened. This is the poison went in the cup here. Such and such. He had the ticket. It's like he can collect evidence. He's a detective, and even though he's bumbling, that doesn't mean that he's bad at his job.
Yeah,
Whereas, especially when you get to investigations and investigations 2, you're surprised he can tie his shoes. So
There's no way he can become worse than Larry,
oh,
or more pitiable than Larry.
it feels like it sometimes.
Oh,
I will-
that's rough. If that's
like
the
he's
case.
not as pathetic, but he's, especially if you like present evidence to him and stuff in investigations, he just comes off as dumb as a bag of rocks. And it's just sad that they didn't have anything for his character to do other than to be, the bumbling Watson to Edgeworth's Holmes. So it's a shame, I think. But
Yeah. And that's something I'll get to much later. Because Spirit of Justice is coming out, I'm not going to get to the investigation series until after I finish that game.
yeah.
Since spoilers are probably going to be rampant with that.
Oh, actually, investigations is very neatly off to the side. Nothing in
Yeah,
there.
that's why I'm also
really...
not worried.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you were worried about spoilers from that.
Oh, no,
Never mind.
I'm worried about spoilers from Spirit of Justice.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay, sorry, I'm misunderstanding you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Well, I will say before we move on to Case 4 that this was my stopping point. I finished Case 3 and then just stopped because of I think E3 was coming up, and I think I finished this just slightly before that or around that point. And I was really into it, and I thought it was really good. If I had started Case 4 at all in that 2-month interim since I've played it, we would have been doing this discussion a lot earlier, because there is no way there is no way I could not continue on after what Case 4 shows.
Oh, of course not. Case 4 is like it's a prelude to Case 5, obviously, but I think Case 4 on its own merits is a very beautifully tragic piece, honestly. Like damn, like some of that stuff still kind of makes me tear up a little bit when I'm replaying the game, even though I know what happens. Like I have a question for you guys. When you were playing Case 4, despite knowing that Mia can't win this case because, otherwise Case 1 doesn't work out the way it does. Despite knowing that, did you guys, while you were playing, still have the feeling like, yeah, I might actually get Dahlia? Did that happen to you guys? Or were you... Because whenever I replay the game, I always find myself caught up in that feeling, despite knowing better, that we can really get her. And and that's really what makes the ending hit so much harder, I think, as well.
I think what you're getting at is that you're complimenting the writing so well that you got into it, make you think that even though this is a prequel case to the first case, you think you really are going to get Dahlia by the end of it. Unfortunately, because they go to tell us that Turnabout Beginnings takes place before Turnabout Memories, I couldn't turn that off. I knew that we're not going to get her. She's going to get away because, otherwise Case 1 wouldn't work with it.
Yeah.
That said, I still very much enjoyed the case. I got a lot of it reminded me the most of Rise from the Ashes from Phoenix Wright And just
really?
how it said, yeah, I don't know why. It might have been because of the body in the car.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It probably because I'm writing Phoenix Wright 1, but I just like case 4 and 5 are interconnected so deeply. They're considered part 1 and part 2 of the finale of this game. And I was shocked there was a 5th case of this game, because that's another reason why it reminded me of Rise from the Ashes, because I think before this, I think the DS version of Phoenix Wright was the only other game that had 5 cases.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, oh no, this is going to be a 16-hour finale.
Yeah. I'm really kind of wondering what it would have been like to play these games as they were coming out on the GBA, where you're expecting, okay, case 4, this is going to be it, and then you realize, like, whoa, case 5, like, that must have been a cool shock for everybody. I mean, granted, now that we like a case 5 isn't a mystery to us because we've always had Rise from the Ashes, but it's just, I think that probably would have been a cool thing to experience.
Yeah, I think just to show how epic the finale really was. And I'm sort of halfway between you guys. Like, I did find myself getting caught up with the writing and thinking, man, my whole thought was, how does Mia lose this? Because she was just nailing her on all the points and really had a solid case. And then Terry does what he does. And it's, it is that sort of tragedy. But the thing is, I wasn't, like, I wasn't close to tearing up because of that, because I didn't really connect to Terry. I mean, he definitely has a tragic story, but because I didn't really know him, and didn't get a time to really know him, I also didn't get that kind of connection that Case 5 provides.
I felt bad for him, especially when I was playing through the games being a little bit older, and you realize he's probably somewhere on the autism spectrum.
That's what I was. Yeah. That's the question I was about to ask you, because the only thing I didn't get a clear grasp on was his characterization, whether or not he was of the autism spectrum, or whether or not he was just terrified of what's about to happen.
I get the feeling that I get the feeling that at the very least he's very slow, and that makes Dahlia even more despicable, because she's taking advantage of someone who literally doesn't know any better.
Well, the weird thing to me with that, it's like questioning his intelligence, was he was considered her tutor. That's how they met. And I was trying to figure out how that works. Like, she just targeted him specifically and asked for him to be her tutor, or what? They never go into it, but it does sort of raise questions about his intelligence, or maybe just him being in solitary confinement for so long sort of damaged him.
That could be
that way.
Again, we're not given, this is also a lot of stuff we kind of have to piece together, because we're not given a lot of information. But if he is somewhere on the autism spectrum, and if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. I believe it's not uncommon for people like that to be exceptional in specific things. Like math is often one.
Yeah.
Like, they're awkward personally, but like they're really great with numbers or something like that.
Yeah, so that can be quite common. And it was just weird that he was. I guess I get what you're thinking. What you're saying.
Yeah, it's again a little bit more elaboration would have been nice, though. I agree.
Yeah, but the return of Dahlia and the showdown between her and Mia, and just seeing like what she did to her sister, or stepsister, I guess. Yeah,
she is, and you have to also remember that she was starting all of this like back when she was like 15 years old.
14.
Too, so 14, yeah. Oh God. So she's one of those like born evil kind of villains as well. So
I did specifically tweet out at the end of Case 4 is like, I think Dahlia is likely the most evil character in all of Phoenix Wright, or at least the trilogy.
I still kind of get it's a toss up between, like, this is why I kind of go back and forth on what my favorite of the original trilogy is, because her, Manfred von Karma and Matt Engard are all such spectacularly evil people that I don't know which one is worse. Like, is the person who, like, is Dahlia's single-sided, like, perseverance and pettiness the worst? Is, like, von Karma's arrogance the worst? Is Matt Engard's sliminess the worst? It's up for philosophical discussion, obviously, but you can make a solid case for all three, I would say.
I would say because of Dahlia's goals are so petty compared to Manfred. Yeah, because it is arrogance and a sense of grandiose with Manfred von Karma and Morgan. Endgame, just to compare, is like to be head of the current village or the Fey clan. And you see, Matt on guard. I mean, yeah, he's a douchebagger, you said, but that's all I ever got with him.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, the guy had to be locked up, and it makes the conclusion for Justice for All the more satisfying. But Dahlia, this person needs to go. I don't want her locked up. I want her dead.
She is dead.
She turns around
and
sets butterflies on fire. Nobody else in this series does that.
She does have a badass way of finally getting taken care of, though. Like her final moment, which is both terrifying and kind of satisfying.
It's weird though. Like, she sets the butterflies on fire in case 1, but it's kind of a blink and you miss it, know it moment. So it's actually pretty subdued for an AA breakdown, kind of. So,
no, I noticed that right away.
But like, especially when you get that whole exorcism sequence at the end, that is, I think, to this, I love that breakdown, but I also love Manfred von Karma's head desk breakdown as well. So I'm not like, it's definitely flashier than Von Karma's, but Von Karma's is just so in character, I think, as well. So again, I'm going back and forth between which one I like better. But
it's really it is really difficult.
One thing about Case 4 that we haven't talked at all about yet is Edgeworth, I think. And I love seeing old style Edgeworth, because he's just as ruthless as he was in Ace Attorney 1, like before he figured out his shit. And one thing that I really love is that we really get the sense of how intelligent he is, because Dahlia obviously uses her looks to wrap especially men around her finger. Like, she tries to get the judge in her pocket, like Winston Payne. Edgeworth is very clearly not fazed by that, but you do get the sense that he's letting her think that just so that he can get her to cooperate, which I think is, it's not like overplayed, but it's kind of a subtle little thing to the writing that I think is just a really good attention to detail, that like Edgeworth wouldn't really care that she's trying to play him as long as that he could get the testimony he needed to get the guy in jail. To
get the win, yeah.
That's
all I cared about at the moment was the win record.
Yeah, it was a very nice consistency of character, and seeing him go beyond that. Because another pointed thing, if you kind of forgot about Case 1, which, to be honest, the funny thing is the return to Case 4 after so long of an 2-month absence from the game, and being vaguely remembering what had happened before, and coming back to it cold, and to start with a case like that was just kind of insane for me. Especially, you're up against Edgeworth. Oh, by the way, here's obviously the identity of Godot.
Yeah, the game's not trying to hide it as well.
At that point, you know who that Diego Armando becomes Godot. The thing I forgot, and I did not remember this until they revealed it again at the in Case 5, was, oh yeah, Dahlia poisoned him. Completely forgot about that plot point in the times, because I never saw Diego. I forgot that Mia was dating. It was implied to be dating him in Case 1 and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, those details. That would have been nice to remember and really connect all these things. Yeah. All I was going off was, oh, Diego is Godot. That's cool.
He dyed his hair and got a Cyclops visor at some point. It's like,
yeah.
That's fine.
Talking about details, one thing from Case 4 and Case 1 that you might not notice is that you see Mia really freak out when Phoenix eats the necklace in Case 4, and Mia, like, that's like kind of the start of the I can't win kind of mindset that she has towards the end of the case before she kind of bounces back. Mm-hmm. It makes a lot more sense that would happen when you remember that eating the necklace was how Terry Fowles committed suicide. So
I forgot about that.
That kind of, oh, this is happening again. Again, it's not like played up so much to the point where, oh, it's obvious that this is happening because of this. It's a subtle thing, but it's part of why I think Trials and Tribulations is such a great game in the Ace Attorney series is because it does a lot of these smaller things, and it doesn't rub it in your face. Like, look at how smart we are using our fancy literary devices and whatnot, like some other games tend to do when they think that they're being so clever. So
I completely forgot about that connection. That makes that case more fascinating.
Yeah,
like after experiencing case 4.
Yeah, I think out of all the games, Trials and Tribulations is probably the one that you get the most out of a revisit, I think. I replay the games all the time anyway, even though like they're just stories, so you wouldn't think that you would need to. But
yeah, well, people reread books all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know, but like one of the most common things in reviews for these games is, oh, there's no replay value, and so, yeah.
They're in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something to mention, but it is story wise. But yeah, Case 4 is a very solid prologue to what you need to know for Case 5, and it did serve as a great introduction to me as what's going on, and just carrying me right into Case 5 and all the twists and turns that one came out of. Because boy, did I freak out a lot during that case.
Case 5 is so much fun to me. I love going back to Case 5 and Trials and Tribulation for a lot of reasons.
Case 5 is fantastic. I have one nitpick. The first trial and the second trial, all 3 figures are different in both trials. That's the only thing that bothers me, is it's just like, okay, you're going to have one day of a trial, and you're going to have another day of the same trial with a different judge, defense attorney, and prosecutor. Granted, it's a minor thing, but it bothers me. It bothers me a lot because court does not work that way.
Also, I'm pretty sure the court system in Phoenix Wright is...
Ted, we're taking your critiques and criticisms to heart, and we're implementing the feedback into this new Mason system we have.
Oh, God.
I hope you look forward to it.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that did not bother me at all. I did notice it and thought it was kind of funny, but I also was like, your attorneys are doing the investigations mostly and are figuring out the murderers. This is not real, this is not real lawyer.
It's a minor nitpick.
Eat your burger, Apollo.
Eat your hamburgers.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah, go ahead, John.
It's Case 5. I love because it's a pretty meaty case, but it never feels very long. Because it's throwing you for a loop with what you have to do to get to the end game and how we need to get to that point. And to me, my favorite part of it, we were talking about Edgeworth earlier, is when he takes the defense attorney stand. Mm-hmm. When he takes over Phoenix's role because he falls off the bridge, survives miraculously, but then again, we've all established that Phoenix Wright is an Iron Sentinel that belongs in Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Yep.
Phoenix Wright sneezes so hard it makes the Hulk flinch. Okay.
Yeah.
But to see Edgeworth 3 games in taking over the role of Phoenix and how he approaches the job opposite of him is very intriguing. To me, the best Cyclops moment in the entire series is with him. First off, he gets the name wrong all the damn time. Psycho-Locks.
Which is, I always call them Psycho-Locks now, for the record.
And when he's using the what's the name of
the Magatama?
The Magatama on Larry. And he gets the Cyclops broken. And then 5 more show up after that.
I cracked up laughing at that point. It's just him going, no!
And at that point, it's not that he couldn't break them then, he just didn't feel like it. So he okay, fine, we'll do it in court.
That was brilliant. That moment was one of the funniest in this series to me. I also enjoyed his line of, is there just a giant kick me sign on the defense? On the defense side?
I will say, I think Trials and Tribulations is probably the funniest Ace Attorney game. Mm-hmm. When I was first playing the game, I think in Case 4, you investigate younger Gumshoe, and then Mia's questioning him, and he's like, "Oh man, you're you're really pretty. And for some reason, that got me cracking up, like literally rolling on the floor laughing for like a good 5 straight minutes when I was playing the game for the first time. It's, I think Trials and Tribulations, like all of the games are hysterical, but I think Trials and Tribulations probably has the best mix of humor and more serious points. On top of just being funny. So, you know, that's a plus.
Oh, I mean, going off of what Johnny was saying about how it feels short and how nothing ever feels like it extends itself, and I think the reason because of that is because each section of this case keeps you invested for different ways. When you reach in the very first part, when you're just going to the to that temple, you have the mystery of Iris and what the heck is up with her since she looks like Dahlia, and you're like, what's going on here? Part 2, you have investigating as Edgeworth. First part of the trial, defending as Edgeworth against Franziska, who I did not expect to return. Again, a big shock for me. And then getting into sort of the swing of things with Phoenix and slowly figuring out all these major revelations throughout the series. And probably the one that got me most, just a pure reactionary standpoint, and I haven't had this happen to me in a very long time with the game, is when Phoenix figures out that Elise was actually Maya's mother.
Oh,
that's and you discover that she died, and I just had this chill go up my spine, and I had goosebumps forming on me. That is solid writing to have all of a sudden realize exactly who the victim is, what it means to these characters, and to go, oh,
it's
heartbreak.
It's one of those things. It's the first game, like, it establishes that Misty Faye is presumed dead. She's not actually dead, and in that point, it's just kind of a write-off kind of thing. Like, it's just one of those details where she's not actually dead. She just ran away, and we haven't seen her since. So I did not honestly think the first time I was playing the game that we would ever find out what really happened to her. Mm-hmm. So especially when they start playing her theme song from earlier in the case as well, which is beautiful for the record. I think it's called Simple Melody. It's one of my favorite tracks in the series. They play that music again, and you realize that, oh man, Maya never got to say goodbye to her mom and things like that. That's the kind of like quiet, heartbreaking stuff that this game's so good at, I think, as well, because there's a lot of really tragic things that you're unfortunately that you're given enough time to let it sink in, but you do have to keep on moving as well. So it's just so good. Yeah.
How'd you react to that moment, Johnny?
It was honestly kind of a thing I forgot.
Oh, really?
About because Mia and Maya's mom was something that was more, I figured, important in the first game rather than the third game. And by the time they brought it back as a concept, I was like, right, that's a thing. But it's not the reason why I'm intrigued in this case already. I am more intrigued as to why we have Dahlia, Clone 2, running around in this village. And but I agree that there was an impact there when she dies, because I feel it's like, oh, that sucks. You know, it's one thing when you lose the sister, but it's another thing to learn when you lose your mom, especially near the end game, where it really hits you. But to be perfectly frank, I did kind of forget about the character as an idea since the first game.
It's not, and that's understandable because it's not super important. I do think that they try to make it like kind of remind you about Misty Faye because you're in a spirit channeling kind of thing. They talk about her a couple of times, but she's not super important. You wouldn't think that they would bring her back because she wasn't a major factor, like earlier in an earlier case or anything. So
yeah, it's more the fact of like I got chills because it's like, oh no, she died. It was more, oh no, poor Maya.
Not to mention, like, her and Pearl, too. Like, you really do get the sense that they're the only, like, Maya's not just sticking with Pearl because Pearl needs somebody to look after her, but also just because Pearl's the only person that Maya really has left, other than Phoenix. in terms of family, which is, it's really, like, Maya is one of the strongest characters in the series, like, both in terms of being a character, but also in terms of being a strong person. Because if you think in terms of the amount of shit that she goes through while still being able to put up a peppy kind of attitude, it is like, it's astounding what kind of, like, how much strength the character she would have to be able to do that, which is part of what makes her cross-examination sequence at the end so kind of heart-wrenching. Is because you finally kind of see her breaking down. Like, she's kind of a shell of her former self at that point.
Yeah, she's just wrung out completely, and it's definitely rough. And you can see Phoenix feel bad for her in that moment, but he knows what he has to do in order to, finish this case off and get the truth out.
Yeah.
And let me just break down quick why I think Morgan is by far the most evil character in this game. Is because she has that grudge that she built up. She, obviously her first husband was awful as well, to just leave completely with her two daughters, and she made sure to have pearls just so she had another chance at her becoming the main branch again. But what she does to Pearls is about the most despicable thing that you can ever expect ever see from a woman, is to expect her one daughter to wait for her one daughter to die in order for her other daughter to channel that channel that daughter in order to kill her niece.
The
implications of that are so screwed up, especially since Pearls is one of the most innocent characters in this series.
It's especially, like, again, it's like, essentially in that way, like, Pearl would have murdered Maya, essentially.
Yeah.
But, like, on top of that, like, the way that you get the sense from Morgan that she doesn't do, like, she says, oh, I'm going to make Pearls the head of the branch. It's all about Pearl, but no, you get the sense that it is not about Pearl. It is all about herself.
Yeah, and, like, Pearl doesn't care.
Yeah, if you get the sense, if you, like, look at the way that she treats Pearl, even, like, before she gets arrested, you could make an argument for abuse, I think.
Totally.
Totally.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's also, Pearl does not get it easy in this game either. Like, especially considering, like, how broken down Pearl is during the second day of investigation, where you have to kind of build her back up again with Phoenix as well. It's man.
Yeah, and the fact that really Misty Faye saved both Maya and Pearl's life, because as Godot says when he reveals his whole thing, he might have ended up stabbing Dahlia in Pearl's body and just not care, because he just, that sense of revenge for what she did to him.
Yeah, I think that's part of what makes Godot such a good villain, is that he has his moment of realization. Like, he's still caught up in his emotions, that he's still a logical person because he's a lawyer, obviously, but he consciously does not care. He chooses to let his emotion get the better of him, which I think, but you still feel bad for him too. What I think, to me, is the most effective moment, I would say, in the entire game, is towards the end of the final trial, where you need to prove that you need to prove how Godot could cover up the injury in order to solve the case. And up until that point, they'd been using all the new music, but once like Phoenix is finally proving that he can do things on his own, they start playing the original Pursuit theme from the first Ace Attorney. And
is that satisfying?
It is. Yeah. It's the Ace Attorney. It's it's probably one of those things, like, due to context. Like, I didn't really pay attention to video game music until around that time, like when I was in middle school and playing these. And it wasn't just Ace Attorney that got me, like, really listening to game music. It was also, like, the release of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where a lot of music was coming out, and I really started to appreciate it. But it was like, I remember playing the game for the first time and hearing that music, and I was just like, whoa, this is from the earlier game. And I kind of got the sense that he had come so far, like he had finally reached the point that Mia had been at. So it's so emotionally satisfying to get to that point every time I play the game, and it's just like, yeah, we're gonna get Goto and prove him wrong, basically, that we are good enough to stand at that defense bench, and it's just fantastic.
I remember, especially when you do that final cross-examination, and to me it wasn't as let me see, what's the word I'm looking for? Because in Justice for All, the final moment, you could say, where you had to present the gun and the VHS tape to was it Shelley the Killer, I think is what his name was.
Yeah, you had to prove that Madame Guard was gonna betray him.
To me, I thought that was a bit much in terms of choosing the right combination of evidence to make sure you got the good ending. But in this one, the eureka moment I had when it's like, where could he be hiding that wound? It's like, there's no sign of damaged clothing or anything like that. And I remember that I was laying down. It was like 3 a.m, because we've all agreed that it's the best time to play the game. It's late at night. And I remember like saying in a relatively loud voice, "It's his face!" And the fact that it was right was so satisfying. And then, of course, the original Pursuit theme playing in the background. It was such a satisfying conclusion. And can I ask, though, I mean, during that sequence, you're under a lot of pressure because Goto says, "Why don't we go for the unlimited penalty?" Did anyone ever supposed to take that? He meant to say ultimate penalty. Why does he say unlimited?
It's probably a mistake because
I think it might also be it probably should be the ultimate penalty. You're right,
yeah.
But if I'm gonna BS something to defend the game, it's kind of a more symbolic moment, because like up to that point, like throughout the whole game, he's basically saying to Phoenix, "You're not worthy to be there." So it's kind of him saying, "Okay, prove it. Like this is your last chance to prove that you're good enough to be a defense attorney." I think so. I guess that's why like he said, like unlimited, like, oh, if you lose, like you can't do, like, I don't know. This is a BS argument, obviously. But I don't know. It's worth thinking about, I guess.
Yeah, it's certainly an excellent moment, and figuring it out and seeing it all come to conclusion, and just seeing everything slowly wrap itself up. His backstory, him saying about what he would do to Dahlia, and all that. I've seen a bit of a contention around where people either really like Godot or really hate Godot, and I can definitely see both sides. For me, I think he works. I don't know if I outright like him as a character, because he is a villain.
He's a well-written character, I think. Just because, and part of that is because he is not a likable person. He's like, as we said, he's a smug, arrogant asshole who has some very who doesn't hide his sexism and who clearly looks down on others. So he's not a likable character in that sense, but you really do feel bad for him for what he went through. Like you can, like, if you could imagine like waking up one morning and the love of your life is dead, like that inspires some empathy right there. But you can tell it's just displacement. Like he's displacing all of that pent up rage onto Phoenix, and unfortunately, since we play as Phoenix, we're we're on the brunt end of all that. So, yeah, I think he's an unlikable character, but a very well written character. That's how I personally see him.
The part of me would be lying if I didn't like the gimmick more than the actual character, because I don't enjoy him so much because of his backstory. Again, but that's just. Yeah, I mean, again, that just goes to show how well written he is.
Yeah.
Because you don't like him as a character. You don't like how he's just portrayed.
Yeah, it definitely, makes sense. And they do try to soften him just because he did get into a relationship with Mia. So she had to see something good in there, where his whole fact of looking down on her. He does have a strong sense of justice, because with him breaking the coffee mug in his hand at the end of Case 4 and whatnot. So there's a lot of strong points to him where I could definitely see it go either way. And that's, as Ted said, that's a sign of good writing, where you can just sort of take each person's interpretation and it's the right interpretation based on their viewpoint.
Unless if they disagree with me, then it's the wrong interpretation.
Obviously.
Yes, of course.
Before, I think we're getting towards the end here, but before we do that, what do you guys think of Iris?
Honestly, not much. I was more intrigued with the mystery of her rather than the actual character. Because once we found out about the whole twin sister sort of thing, or body double, then it was more like, okay, that's really cool. But in terms of like a regular character, that's where that kind of lost. Once the mystery was gone, she fell from significance for me. I felt bad, but I wasn't so much into the character now.
She's definitely, I would say that really for the last part of the trial, she's not so much the defendant as Maya is. Like, you're trying to prove that Maya didn't kill her mom at that point. So, in terms of Iris, again, she's not as, I'd say, well-rounded a character as Godot. But I do like what they do with her, where she's obviously, she's better than Dahlia, but that doesn't necessarily make her the good twin. She's the less dominant twin. She goes along with all of Dahlia's plans, and she feels bad about it, and she feels like she has to repent, but she still is too shy to really break out and make a definite stand. So in that kind of sense, she's a kind of a tragic figure. And I like that just because it's not like a good twin, evil twin kind of thing. No, she's a flawed person, but yeah. So I think she's a good character. She's just kind of overshadowed by Dahlia. Well, on purpose, she's overshadowed by Dahlia. That's kind of the point. But in terms of kind of being well written, she's overshadowed by Dahlia and Godot, who have more to work with, I think. So, yeah.
Which definitely makes sense. And for me, Iris sort of came together whenever she finally had that, like Johnny, she sort of fell by the wayside. Like, her significance kind of decreased when she found out about the Dolly not even connection, but just exactly what Dolly was up to by posing as her while dead. But her final revelation to Phoenix that she was the one that actually dated him, and the whole thing that the connecting, where she would never do this, and you said she would never stand up to her sister. She's the less dominant one. She does mention how Dahlia specifically did not tell her that she was going to attempt to kill Phoenix because she knew that Iris would try to stop her, and we just didn't get to see that strength of character because of those events. So, but you're right, she is flawed. She did participate in things that she shouldn't have. She was considered herself untrustworthy because she didn't go along with Dahlia's original plan, and she ran away during the whole bridge thing with Terry. So
yeah,
it again, there's some nice complexity to these characters. They might not all stand out in the same way, but as a finale to this trilogy, excellent stuff.
For sure, definitely. Everybody, personally, I look at the Ace Attorney series. It basically has three focal characters, and that's Edgeworth, Maya, and Phoenix. And each character kind of gets their own game's worth of development focused on them, where the first game, Edgeworth, second game, I think, is Phoenix, and the third game's mostly Maya. But with that said, everybody gets somewhere to go by the end. We see Edgeworth we kind of see how far he's come. It's a minor thing, but we do get to see that. We get to see Phoenix kind of finally standing on his own 2 feet as a lawyer, and Maya just finally gets some catharsis and finally gets some of those, she gets a sense of family, even though most of her real family is either dead or in jail, so, that sucks, but it's just, every character has a solid conclusion, and while tragic things do happen, you still end up feeling happy at the end. I think as it's a happy ending, which these characters deserve. I think as well. And it would really suck if we're gonna contrive an excuse that Phoenix gets disbarred. That would really suck if that happened and ruin the ending to a great game. But no, that would never. We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll get to that point. I did not know about him being disbarred. We'll say that. I have not gotten that far. So we'll see.
Oh, what? You thought he was wearing hobo clothes for fun?
I didn't know what was going on. I was curious to see what the mystery was going to be. What happened that they get him to that point? But anyway, your final wrapped up thoughts on Trials and Tribulations, Johnny.
Like I said, it's my second favorite game in the series, if only because I love how it wraps up the entire trilogy. It feels like a proper conclusion that I gladly spent so many hours on at this point. Not because, I'm so ingrained into this game's storyline, but because these games are pretty meaty. And that's just generally how long it takes. But by the end of the final case of Trials and Tribulations, I was like, damn, that was a great time. I'm really glad to have played that because it was just so engaged. I mean, again, it's the reason why you read books. It's the reason why you read a series of books. I wouldn't call Trials and Tribulation the Prisoner of Azkaban of Phoenix Wright, but you're glad that you got to that point because you enjoyed the first game, you enjoyed the second game, and you're glad to see the third game delivered just as much, if not more. But to reflect on what you guys said earlier about why you would rank the first game above this is because you can jump into the first game. Because it's a first game. With Trials and Tribulation, you need the baggage of the first two games, and that's to me that the only sour point of the game is that it's so heavily wrapped up in its continuity that you need to play those two games just for this one to make sense. Otherwise, you're lost. And
yeah.
No one likes that.
It does its best to catch you up, but you need to have that experience of the first two games.
Yeah, you lose all the nuances and subtleties.
Not to mention that the game, part of what makes the ending and all of these character interactions so powerful is that you've grown to love these characters over two whole games. If you're jumping in fresh and you don't know who the heck Mia is, who the heck Edgeworth and Phoenix and Maya, all the tragic stuff and all the things that happen to these characters, you don't care because you haven't grown to love them yet. So, yeah. I mean, I would say that I generally rank Trials and Tribulations above Ace Attorney 1, even though it's not the first game. Like, again, you do need the context, but at the same time, there are some minor things about Ace Attorney 1 that I think are just not as good. Like, for example, the 3-day trials in cases 3 and 4 drag a little bit. Personally, case 3 is a little bit weak in Ace Attorney 1. It's minor stuff, but overall, I would say Trials and Tribulations, all three games are fantastic. So, but Trials and Tribulations, it's being such a satisfying conclusion is part of what I think makes it top so many people's favorite Ace Attorney game lists.
Yeah, and mentioning something that you said before, Ted, where you said that you would still rank the last case of Justice for All but higher than the last case as far as your favorite case overall. I do agree with you there because, again, baggage. You cannot enjoy case 5 on its own without the rest of the series, but I do think you could get a lot more enjoyment, even if you don't know the characters fully, out of Justice for All's finale, and as a case on its own.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. With that said, like, if what's it? Goodbye, My Turnabout is case 4 of Justice for All. If that's number 1, case 5 of Trials and Tribulations is a close second. It is still phenomenal. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to smack talk that case. That case is also like Trials and Tribulations is probably like Justice for All got me screaming at the screen, but Trials and Tribulations almost got me to shed a tear a couple of times. And very few video games have actually gotten me that far. So yeah, good stuff.
Yep. So I think that covers it for Trials and Tribulations. Once again, we can come back and do this again once I finish Apollo Justice, if you guys are interested. Hopefully I'll get to that relatively quickly. I am very curious about Apollo Justice because...
We'll do that at 4 in the morning if we have to.
Yeah.
Just to make sure all three of us are in that discussion. I will not let you guys do that without me.
Derrick, I actually think you will like Apollo Justice because you said before you like Professor Layton games. So, since you like Professor Layton and that series is built upon having terrible endings, you should love Apollo Justice.
I'm telling you, Unwound Future is fantastic, and Diabolical Box is better than the first.
Okay, yeah, sure, but Ace Attorney versus Professor Layton had like the stupidest ending I could ever possibly imagine, and it was all Layton. You could tell it was 100% Layton why that ending was so stupid. Yeah, but
I'm a sucker for the Layton games, always will be. So, and I have to credit that game for getting me interested in the Ace Attorney games. So,
yeah. I gotta say, we've been going on for over an hour now. If you get me going on Apollo Justice, I might go for 2.
It'll be a 6-hour podcast.
Oh God!
Very few. Yeah. I really don't want to taint your opinion of the game because you should be able to think what you should think, and I don't want you to hate it just because I do.
I shrug off everything you say. Don't worry about that. I'm not.
Well, way to spare my feelings there, Derrick.
Oh, totally. No. I mean, when it comes to that kind of like your opinions on a game, like if until I played it, I am able to form my own opinion. I am interested in other people's opinions because I do see quite a few saying that they really enjoy Apollo Justice. So I am curious exactly where I'm going to fall on this extremely divisive game. That's one thing for sure. And I do hear that the trials and like the solutions are a little obtuse in how they go about it. So I am curious how it's exactly going to go. I think so far it has started just a little bit I've played so far, and it's basically up until the end of up until you discover Apollo's perceive ability for the first time. I think it's had a strong start so far. I'm curious where it's going to go. That could definitely drop based on exactly what gets revealed when, or how it all goes and how the story progresses. But as of right now, I think it's off to a strong start where I'm curious where it's going to go. And
okay.
I want to say so many things.
Yeah, I do
but
too.
I also don't want to ruin the game for you.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not do that, Tim.
I'm biting my tongue so hard my teeth have gone straight through it.
Your teeth are breaking just like that one character in that one game. Yeah. I see. I had to say it like that because I didn't want to spoil anything for it. Not apologize. I'm thinking of another game. That said, I'm very much looking forward to the eventual Apollo Justice discussion at some point. Then I imagine that we'd have one for Dual Destinies, all leading up to Spirit. Was it Spirit of Justice?
Spirit of Justice, correct.
Spirit of Justice. Ace Attorney v Superman. Spirit of Justice.
I also need to get both of you guys to play Ghost Trick because Ghost Trick was.
I've actually played Ghost Trick before.
Oh yeah, you have played. Okay, John, you need to play Ghost Trick because it was created by Shu Takumi, who is the creator of Phoenix Wright. And
why would I want to shoot Takumi? What has he done to me?
Oh well, you want to shoot Takumi because he's Hoshiden scum and is terrible. But no, Ghost Trick is a fantastic spiritual successor to the Ace Attorney series.
You'd really enjoy it, John.
It is a pun. It's about ghosts. The game is about ghosts. Ghost Trick is awesome. Yeah. Also, Investigations. John, did you ever play the Investigations 2 fan translation?
I have not.
Okay, I need to replay that because I've only played it once. So I'd be down for a discussion on that if you ever get to it, like 3 years from now.
But yeah, the Miles investigation discussion, that'd be something interesting too, because I got something to say about that game, especially near the end. But I mean, but before we wrap it up, I mean, this question goes more for you, Ted, since you've already played the hell out of the series front and back. But what's your general excitement level for Spirit of Justice?
it's
not.
interesting.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked, honestly.
It's Ace Attorney is. I can't expect something on the level of quality from 1 to 3 at this point, because at this point the continuity of Ace Attorney is a mess, and that's not like. One of the things about Dual Destinies is that it chooses to ignore most of the lingering plot threads from Apollo Justice. There's like a million characters. They're clearly bringing characters back for nostalgia's sake, like Maya, and like the spirit medium like pool thing just sounds kind of weird to me. Like,
well, the funny thing is the demo for it does come out tomorrow, so you'll be able to experience that.
Yeah, like I mean, granted, I might end up liking that because I remember first seeing the trailer for Investigations 2 and seeing Logic Chess and being like, that's stupid. But when I played Investigations 2, Logic Chess was one of my favorite parts of that game. So basically, considering the issues that Dual Destinies has and Apollo Justice has, and the fact that the series is kind of all over the place, I can't expect something like the original 3 games, but I'm hoping that it's enjoyable on its own merits. So, I had honestly kind of forgot that it had existed for a little bit too, so.
What about you, Johnny?
It is. It's the whole, because I am actually very happy to see some returning elements for Spirit of Justice, but.
Well, no, I'm happy to see Maya back, but it's still very clear to me that she's there because people missed her, as opposed to her having like a real role to play.
To be honest, I did miss.
Oh, I did too.
I think she's an integral part of the entire series. Not to say that I don't mind. Well, to a certain extent, some of the characters, but I was kind of excited to head into Dual Destinies when that was the thing, because I really enjoyed the original trilogy and all that. And Spirit of Justice is for the first time I'm actually heading into a new game along with everybody else, and I'm well, unless you're in Japan, you already have the game, I think.
How? I thought I could have sworn I got you into the series before Dual Destinies came out, or was it
no,
like
I'm pretty
just
sure
after?
it was just out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and so it took you. Oh, I definitely remember now because the game came out late 2013, and I remember I was driving home from my grandparents' house in like January of 2014, and you were like texting me and like, how long does Rise for the Ashes go? Yeah. You probably didn't get to.
It was
to
January 2014 when I began playing the series for the first time.
Wow. So so you probably didn't get to Dual Destinies until like 3-4 months later at the earliest, I would have to imagine.
Yeah, it was during the summer.
Yeah,
it was 2014 that I got to Dual Destinies, but I'm interested to see where the story goes, and I'm hoping it's a good time, because I just love, again, I think I'm gonna play Ace Attorney now at 11 p.m. at night and not stop until it's 7 in the morning.
Yeah, that's kind of the way to play this series. It feels like. For my own part, I've purposely started staying away from things shown in Spirit of Justice. I'm aware of characters returning and all that, but also with a lot of some of the other characters returning, I don't know their significance yet. So I'm sort of lost in that sort of thing. But I am excited, of course, after coming off this series, that Maya is back. It does feel weird to have her be so integral for these 3 games and then have her not be there for the next 2. So
she's mentioned. She just doesn't do any. She's not like present, I should say. There are a couple of hidden little references to her that you might find enjoyable, but she doesn't play a plot role. It's actually one thing that's kind of interesting among Ace Attorney fans is like people's different fan guesses as to what the other characters were up to during the time split between Apollo Justice and the original trilogy. Like there's actually a lot of really effective stuff written out that like in terms of fan works that's like written and drawn about that time period. So when you're done with Apollo Justice, I might have to show you a few of my favorites. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that covers it for our Trials and Tribulations discussion. So thank you for watching. And if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And both of you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Ted, where can they find you at?
I'm a member of BrainScratchComms, where we talk about all sorts of different games. We did do a commentary on the Ace Attorney movie, which we need to get you to watch, for the record, Derrick. It's honestly one of my favorite movie commentaries that we've done, because that movie is just so bizarre. But yeah, we also, me and John did a talk about the Ace Attorney series right after he finished too, so if you want to check that out as well, that's pretty good stuff. So yeah.
Cool. And Johnny?
I can, right along with Tech, and plug Brain Scratch commentaries as well. I have my own personal channel, youtube.com/SomeCallMeJohnny. I do video game reviews, podcasts for myself, reaction, and all that jazz. Right now, I'm in the middle of a Star Fox marathon, though you wouldn't know it by the next two videos coming up, which is a review of Metroid Prime Federation Force and AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake, which I'm very much looking forward to see what I think about it, as I've been following that game for about 6 years now, and I'm anxious to see what the final result is. But you can catch me then and there, and I deeply appreciate it. And thanks again for inviting me, good sir.
Yeah, no problem at all. Always fun to discuss this Phoenix Wright with you guys. But of course, stay tuned to Game Explained for more on Phoenix Wright and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.